Thank you always to our show sponsors. But 2-0, the Bills are 2-0. And I would think that most of analysts, we had fans, we had a lot of people thinking the Bills may be 1-1 sitting here at this point. Definitely into a rocky stretch here coming up between Miami, then Jacksonville at home, who always seems to play the Bills well, into Baltimore, Houston, the Jets, into that stretch where people were talking about 2-3, 3-3, 2-4, and maybe the Bills are still the cream of the crop, already elevating to the top 3 in most depth charts on most power rankings. So that is cool to see. But smash that like button for us. A lot of cool things came out of the game last Thursday. We had our pregame show last week. Haven't had a chance to talk about the game, so we won't spend too much time, especially before we get Jared on to talk about the Jags. But a quick 10 minutes about the game. What great statistics that come out of there. Josh Allen is still an alien. His EPA is still off the charts, as well as some really cool defensive metrics. You got Jamarcus Ingram. You got Christian Benford being two of the best coverage corners at separation in the NFL. Christian Benford just came out as the number 1 preventer of separation. He prevents it. He is truly becoming every bit as much as a cornerback 1. And then what Jamarcus Ingram has been able to do from his spot. The defense looks mighty fine. I know they just lost another player in Terrel Bernard. Now you're going to miss Milano, Bernard, and Taron Johnson at least for 2 to 4 weeks between them all. And then obviously Milano much into early December for Milano to come back. So you're going to be missing those linebackers. Now you're going to get that Spector, Dorian Williams. That is the backup linebacker core, Kevin, that they were hoping to have against the Chiefs in the playoffs. They had to go even a step down to a hurt Dodson, as well as AJ Klein off the RV. But this is the future backup linebackers, linebacker 3 and linebacker 4. How are you feeling about what transpired in Miami, how well the defense played? The offense didn't need to do too much. I guess sum it all up for us.
Normally I'd be a little bit intimidated and say, oh man, the Bills are missing the whole middle part of their defense between Milano, Bernard, and Taron Johnson. But because Sean McDermott is such a defensive mastermind, I almost feel like at ease. And I know Jacksonville is that classic trap game. The Bills always seem to lay an egg against Jacksonville. So I don't want to get overconfident here. But I really think that McDermott can scheme things up on defense, and you can kind of cover up those blemishes. And, there are so many stats that came out of this game. First of all, let me start from the macro point of view. And I tweeted after the game, the Bills were missing arguably their top 3 defenders in Milano, Bernard, and Johnson, and they still managed to hold the Dolphins to 10 points while forcing 3 turnovers. Now, looking at it from a micro point of view, this stat just absolutely blew my mind. I woke up Friday morning, and I was like, wait a sec. The Bills have played really well on defense, not only last night, but the last 2 weeks in general. And I was like, they held Marvin Harrison in check, and then Trey McBride, too. So I was like, wait a sec. What are the stats here? So get this, Kevin. Between Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle, the Bills' defense have held those 4 receivers to a combined 13 receptions, 99 yards, and 0 touchdowns. They haven't even surpassed 100 yards, and those are 4 of the top receivers in the league. And I know it's early for Marvin Harrison Jr., but where he was drafted, he's projected to be a top target. Trey McBride, we know how good he can be from the tight end position. And with Miami's high-flying offense, the fact that McDermott could scheme those players up on defense, and someone like a Jamarcus Ingram and Cam Lewis are making game-changing plays and holding those 4 players in check over the last 2 weeks, I'm almost speechless.
Maybe, just maybe, something to take away from that, beside box score stats, even advanced stats, doesn't matter either way. Maybe they just know how to coach defense. Maybe this regime knows how to coach a defensive side of the ball. Like at some point, as you look through box score, as you look through advanced analytics and EPAs and Josh Allen 1 here, top of the right graph there, I said, any chart that comes out, you're going to have Josh Allen in the top right of that graph or the top left based on how the axis works and what the criteria is. He's going to be in the top metric box of whatever is the best category for the most part. But I think what's interesting is, to me, like, how much can an offensive coach really elevate Josh? We've seen Daboll leave him and fail. We've seen Dorsey really not do anything with that Cleveland offense so far. Like, obviously, Joe Brady's getting the most out of his offense right now. How much could an offensive coach elevate Josh? I don't know about much. He's already an elevation to the roster. He elevates everybody around him anyways, whether I'm calling plays or, pick your favorite offensive coach, Bobby Slowick, or pick your favorite offensive coach here, Ben Johnson. It doesn't really matter. Now, what you can take away is the combination of a defensive coach and what they're able to do in the midst of those kind of injuries. Like, I don't even want to know if the Bills had those kind of injuries with an offensive head coach, with maybe a defensive coordinator who wasn't as versatile as McDermott. The Bills mix coverages more than anybody in the NFL. Them and the Chiefs, Spagnuolo, being a former coach himself and being just proven to be a really great defensive coordinator. That's one thing as compared to other defensive coaches like Vic Fangio, who I just don't think have it anymore. But you look at what McDermott's being able to do in disguise coverages toward the best of the league. His versatility and what he's able to call is just confusing. You would think that Tua is just overthrowing you. Tua does not overly commit turnovers. It's not like his big problem in life. He is so confused when he plays Sean McDermott. It's ridiculous. He doesn't know where receivers are going. He doesn't know what coverage they're in. Receivers are running wrong routes. You saw it. Wasn't just a one-game thing. You saw it last year when he threw the pick. It wasn't a great route at all. But he threw a pick last year to lose the AFC East Championship game in Week 18. It's the same thing. The coverage is strong, and McDermott just maybe knows how to coach a defense, whether it's Jamarcus Ingram. He picks his players, and I've said this a couple of times. Jamarcus Ingram was an average to below average mid-major college football player. I covered UB and said at the time, like, yeesh, I didn't think he had a Sunday future, let alone – like, I didn't think he had much of a Saturday future. There was times when I was like, he may need to be off the field. Like, he is not covering anybody. But you put him in the right situation with the right coaching staff, with that raw talent that he has. He's a great coverage guy. Absolutely shocking to me to see his development. He spent some time on the practice squad. He showed that he could do it in Miami a couple of years ago in that real heat game. That I was like, okay, he's covering Hill a little bit here. That's pretty impressive. And then he carries that, basically running the route for Tyreek Hill in the end zone when Skylar Thompson had came in. It was just totally an impressive performance by these DBs. And they just have a wealth of players who can play in this scheme. It is good to see. I think the combination has been great, what McDermott has put together on this field. How are you feeling overall defensively? Like, and this is like, you're getting Taron Johnson and Bernard back probably in 3 or 4 weeks. And like, there's just a plethora of talent here. Like, how are you feeling? And then you got the D-line that's dominating. They're winning across the field. You got Rousseau and Von Miller in the top 10 of all pass rushing metrics. There's a lot of good to take away from that.
Yeah, there really is. And I know the Bills have a tough stretch coming up here, as you alluded to, between Baltimore, Houston, and the Jets, all on the road. And not to mention the Jaguars aren't going to be a slouch. But again, I just keep coming back to McDermott, because you have Josh Allen on offense, you have Sean McDermott on defense, and the way that he can just figure out how to deploy someone like a Jamarcus Ingram in these dime packages to, like you said, just absolutely confuse opposing quarterbacks like Tua, it's just incredible. Because Ingram was just a UDFA, and McDermott can make him look like an all-pro. So basically, if you're unfamiliar, that dime package is an extra DB. So essentially, the Bills will take Dorian Williams off the field and replace him with Jamarcus Ingram as that extra defensive back, because Williams can be a liability in coverage. So they put Ingram back there, and it just looks like a match made in heaven. Not to mention, as I already said, Cam Lewis, Balin Spector. I know he didn't cover Achane out in the flat, but I thought he settled in very nicely. And it's just really, really impressive what Sean McDermott can do with this defense. And before we get Jared on here, I just got to say this about Josh Allen on the offense, because I think this is very symbolic too. He only had 141 total yards. He threw for 139, only ran 2 times for 2 yards. And the fact that the Bills can win in that dominant of a fashion and Josh didn't have to be Superman, I think that says a lot.
Yeah, and to kind of cap that point off, Christian Benford is one of the number 1 rated DVOA players at cornerback position. Cornerback 1 so far through with Reek Woolen. Kyler Gordon's played some really good football. Witherspoon from Seattle, Jordan Lewis from Dallas. Those are the top of the cornerback DVOA spectrum per Aaron Schatz, and our friend of the show, who we had on last week, is calling him one of the best corners in the league. So remember, Christian Benford is just continuing to play such top-notch football. It's crazy, but it's time to go ahead, Kevin.
I just want to say, we kind of forget about Benford sometimes because he's so established and he's playing so well, but he was a 6th-round pick out of an FCS school in Villanova, a complete underdog who, again, gets in this system with McDermott and now Babbage with McDermott's tutelage. And Benford, again, looks like an all-pro. And the metrics that come out on him and the stats, Benford is one of those top corners in the league. You pair him up with Rasul Douglas, and that looks like another match made in heaven. And one other stat that I want to say real quick is that Von Miller getting the quarterback in less than 2.5 seconds, that's the fastest time that he's had since 2021. So it seems like everything's coming together. I know the Bills are trying to piece it together with these injuries, but if they can hold the fort down, give it 3-4 weeks, hopefully get the middle of that defense back, at least in Bernard and Johnson. You look forward to hopefully a healthy Matt Milano late November, early December. I'm liking what this team is looking like.